What's up, guys? Coach Gaglione here. This is another edition of our Gags Garage Gym Reviews. I'm Coach Gaglione. I've been involved with powerlifting and strength coaching for over 19 years. So today we're going to do like a longer overview of just kind of all the upper body equipment that I have in my personal garage gym and just some suggestions. So right here you can kind of see just kind of warming up with the empty barbell, a little context. Kind of my shoulder has been bugging me and just have a lot of shoulder problems like over the years. So I'm not kind of really doing any heavy flat barbell benching. For whatever reason, overhead press feels good. But anything where my kind of elbows are out, any sort of kind of chest pressing, flat benching, not been feeling great, but I just wanted to kind of demo. So if you have some sort of bench press setup, whether it be a combo rack, power rack, competition bench, whatever it may be, I think it's important to have some sort of spotter arms. The spotter arms can also be used for other movements. We've been using them a lot for strict curls, if that's something. So we'll have kind of separate videos for some of like the bigger movements, some of the bigger pieces, so like, you know, kind of going over the pros and cons of power racks, combo racks, monoliths, and all those sorts of things, depending on what your goals are. But I do think it's really important that people have safeties, no matter like what level there are. That's kind of one of my points of contention. If you've kind of been following me super closely, I've been having some back and forth with Takeover Strength, which is the new kind of owners of Kabuki Strength. And one of my biggest issues with the squat saddle and strap bar setup is that it's not balanced and it's just going to fall off your back if you let go of the handles. And I don't think that's great because a lot of people don't have safeties. A lot of people don't have safety straps. A lot of people forget to set up their safety pins. And that could be a huge hazard for the lifter as well as the spotter. A couple other things I want to showcase, just some kind of what I would consider kind of jerry rigging or kind of redneck setup type deal. But sometimes you can get a little creative. Like I said, I was able to kind of rig up some cables, some pulley systems. Again, I don't really have the means for space and even, you know, financials right now to have a really robust kind of functional trainer. So I just have a couple of different setups with some kind of weights. So these weights are kind of good for like warming up for like pecs and lats. So just kind of just showing some options here. Again, one of the other things, common themes of all of our setups, we want to try to eliminate friction. We want to try to get from one exercise to the next very quickly. And that's going to eliminate friction. That's going to allow you to actually use the equipment. So things like, you know, the freak athlete, 20-in-1 machine, I don't think it's really a great option for most people in most situations outside of saving space. I just think people are not going to take the time. A lot of people with garage gyms, a lot of people that kind of train in gyms like this, they want to get their work in, they want to get in and out. I think about busy bros on the go, family men, businessmen. They love training, but we don't have 3 or 4 hours to train anymore now that we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and I have some, members in their 70s, and those maybe the 60s and 70s have a little bit more time on their hands, but you get my drift. Not everyone loves training as much as us. So anyways, here's another setup. I think whether it be kind of a Gym Reaper or there's a lot of different handles, these straps are amazing. The Gym Reaper in particular I like because it has 3 different grips. It's essentially going to allow you to spread. But the other kind of unique utility for this, when you're doing kind of tricep movements, when you're taking a neutral grip and you get a lot of kind of weight and pressure into your, kind of the butt, I call it like the butt of your hand, kind of under the pinky, close to your wrist, and it kind of eliminates grip. Anytime you can kind of eliminate grip and enhance stability, that's going to be a really good thing in terms of allowing more output for the target muscle. If your fingers fatigue, if your forearms fatigue, and obviously you could use straps and other things, but things like triceps and side delts. So obviously if you're doing a rowing or a pull down movement or just some sort of, movement where it's kind of a, pulling action, adding in straps. I really like figure 8 straps in particular. There's also the things like, the prime handles and stuff. And again, I think those things are fine, but to be honest, I think a lot of those things are overrated. I think the knockoff, what are they called? I forget what they're called. It'll come to me a little bit later. But there's like these, kind of triangular grips. I forget what they're called, but those are kind of good. They kind of can go in your gym bag, those sorts of things. But anyways, I think something like this is great. The Angle 90 grips, I think that's what the brand name is called. But kind of like all those sorts of things. I think a lot of those things are kind of overrated in my opinion. I think, again, something like this. So either I would strap in if you're kind of doing pulling movements, or you can kind of use the trick with these sorts of straps. So these pulleys are going to be really, I would say, for triceps and kind of upper back / lat work is going to be kind of a great thing for warm up. And the other thing I want you to kind of notice here, if you do have kind of like a Spud Inc., whatever. There's a lot of different, kind of cable systems, pulley systems that are kind of on the cheaper end. Utilize chains. Chains are going to allow you to ground the weight. You could also kind of make it variable resistance, adjusting the strength curve and things of that nature. But chains are going to allow you to kind of ground, so it's not going to swing as much. And that's super helpful in a home gym setting. The last thing that you want is a bunch of plates kind of flying everywhere, kind of knocking into things. So using chains on cable systems that are not kind of, they don't have like a track or a guide rod is a kind of a really useful hack, in my opinion, that I don't often see utilized. And chains can be good, you'll kind of see later in the video, not just for kind of barbell training, which I love, but they also could be very useful for kind of weight for calisthenic movements. Things like pull-ups, dips, push-ups, planks. You can kind of be creative. You can kind of use it as a weight vest if you want to kind of go rucking and all sorts of any body weight movement you can kind of load with chains, and they make for a really useful drop set. I like to have multiple sets of chains. We have some chains that are 14 pounds, some that are 20, some that are 27, and you can kind of mix and match for different combinations depending on what you want. And again, it's very fast and easy, and sometimes even faster than like adjusting weight for like even a weighted vest. It may not be like the most stable thing in the world, but it's a really good tool. Another thing I want to kind of showcase, and we'll take another video here. Squat Max is amazing for seal rows and other things with that bulldog pad, whatever you want to call seal row pad. And then I really like those cap kind of grip plates. They're kind of cheap, but they're really good for other movements. You can kind of grab onto the handles. You can kind of use them for plate raises and other things. So I think those are really handy unless, again, you're a competitive power lifter. I don't really see the need for calibrated plates. As long as you're using the same plates each time, you can kind of have, progressions. And if you want to get really nitpicky, you can kind of weigh your plates, but I really like the grip plates. Just again, it's going to allow you to be faster. This kind of, it's kind of a sit-up board, but it can be used as a decline bench, also as an incline bench. It can be folded up. It doesn't take up a lot of space, and also it can be a little bit of a hack to so you don't have to kind of set up your low row on the floor. If you're going to get one piece for your home gym, this is a little bit on the less expensive side. Some sort of like low row / tricep extension / lat pull down tower. There's one in the corner that's even a little bit cheaper. It has like an ab movement in the middle, which I think is even better. So it gives you a high pulley, a medium pulley, and a low pulley. Most of your work is going to be done off the high pulley, but it is nice to have a low row option as well, whether you're doing traditional low rows or flexion rows. You can also see I have the Swissy handles here. So again, it just allows for quick, as opposed to having to have multiple handles. I just kind of keep the Swissies on there the whole time. So if someone wants to use an underhand grip, a neutral grip, or a pronated grip, people can kind of mix and match and choose. I also think that a lot of people get really bougie with their lat pull downs handles. Don't think it's really necessary, especially if you're going to strap in. I don't really think that knurling is necessary. It feels nice, it's great, but that's one thing that I'll disagree with Coop. I don't think everything needs kind of knurling. I think that knurling is going to be great if you are going to do the exercises barehanded. And outside of that, if you're going to strap in, I really don't think that knurling is that important, in my opinion. Just some other things in terms of mechanics and stuff like that. Generally, for me, the neutral grip is going to be really good to make it more of a lat-focused movement. Again, depending on how you do it, there's nothing wrong with doing frontal plane kind of overhand lat pull downs. But again, depending on if you have shoulder problems, depending on if you have trouble connecting to your lats, having your elbows a little bit more in front of the body, kind of pulling in towards your ribs is going to be really good for learning to engage those lats, and it'll be a little bit less kind of upper back bias, if you will. So if you're going to pick one machine, another little hack here, you can do this from a low pulley, a medium pulley, or a high pulley, depending on how you orient your body. But this is like a sled strap, really good hack. If you're not going to spend $1 million on a side lateral machine, I think this is just as fine. Again, the strap, I could have pulled my body back a little bit further, but it's going to allow you to spread. It's a good strength curve. Again, my shoulder was bugging me a little bit, so my form's a little bit compromised here, but you can kind of do lengthened partials. You could do regular lateral raises. You could do super lateral raises. You could also do kind of Y raises, but there's a lot of good side and front delt options from this kind of setting here. And again, depending on how you orient your body, you can kind of do that exercise no matter what pulley. You just have to kind of adjust. So like if you're kind of going on the floor, I've done these on the floor where you kind of just do them with the low pulley. I've done these on a high pulley and a medium pulley setup where you're also So kind of depending on how you orient your body and how far away. And again, if I had to kind of pick one kind of universal strap, I really like this kind of, Gym Reapers is the brand I like the most. This is another kind of brand, but essentially it's a spreader strap. There's so much you could do with this. So especially for, I would say it's really good for, and you could do the lateral movement with this as well. It's a little bit short, but it could work well for like a lengthened partial. So again, upper back bias row versus lat bias row. Again, I really like this medium. The medium, and if you also kind of notice, I'm kind of having my leg curl leg extension kind of in the same area. So I'm getting multiple uses out of multiple pieces of equipment. Again, less friction, more options. And you can kind of see I have like a preset weight where I could just kind of easily, and I have multiple 10s or multiple 25s. So I can kind of switch from one exercise to the next. Straight bar, like, you can do the straight bar. Sometimes I'll do the straight bar pullover, or sometimes I'll do the spreader pulling. Both are good. Depending on like what you're trying to work. I like doing a straight arm pull down with a pronated or overhand grip because it's going to, in my opinion, transfer over to unracking your bench press as well as kind of holding your lats engaged in like a deadlift type situation. So there's certain exercises where if you're just training for the sake of hypertrophy, you can kind of get really kind of nerdy with your, making things more optimal for your joints and stuff like that. But also if you're like a competitive lifter like myself, right now I'm primarily competing in strict curl, but also have almost 20 years of powerlifting experience. I've totaled 2,100 pounds in competition. I've totaled elite in 5 weight classes. I've squatted 800 pounds in 6 weight classes, first and only no man to do that. So for those types of goals, I'm going to have some more specific training in terms of how I do things. But that being said, even for like a power lifter, I think that we use the straight bar so much. So I think it is good to use more accommodating options for your accessory work for most of the time. When you're peaking for a meet, depending on how beat up you are, you might want to do, more things that are more specific. But again, depending on how you're feeling, if you are like really beat up, again, using more kind of joint friendly options for your isolation work. And then also just, if you are training for strength, if you're training for competition, don't neglect your isolation training. These movements are important. So in terms of upper body, I think that you can get away with less. I think just having at least one cable machine that has multiple heights, but as far as if I had to pick one, like the high pulley option is going to give you the most bang for your buck. If you also notice, again, I'm just kind of showing you just for the sake of, real time. Notice how quickly I'm able to seamlessly kind of go from one exercise to the next. That's going to, again, reduce friction, allow for better training economy, and it's going to allow you to stick to your plan better. If you have like a huge setup time, you're not going to stick to it. Again, I've been competing for almost 20 years at this point. I still, like I said, I even hit an all-time shirted bench PR of 635 last year. I'm working toward 185 strict curl. So, I think that like I'm still, at 38 years old, I got a lot of mileage on me. This was one find that, again, probably was not 100% necessary, but I really like this style of kind of rowing machine because, again, it complements free weight rows. Free weight rows are going to be very challenging at the short position, at the contracted position, which I think has value. I don't think it has no value. But if you're doing dumbbell rows, barbell rows, things of that nature, so this is going to be a little bit more challenging in the start of the movement, the stretch position. So it's a good complement, and also it's just, again, really nice. I can kind of just jump on here, use multiple grips. Again, I really like this style of row. This one is unilateral. You can do one arm at a time, which is great. So again, and then kind of, if you notice, after I'm kind of done rowing, I did some lat focus rows, and I'm going to do some upper back kind of focus rows. And again, it's not to say that your lats aren't working in an overhand grip. It's just, again, the more your elbows come out, the more it's going to kind of bias your rear delts and traps a little bit more. The more your kind of elbows come in towards your body, the lower you're going to drop your arms, the more you're going to kind of bias your lats a little bit. And I think if you're a competitive lifter, doing a little bit of both is going to be important. Getting a bigger, stronger back is always going to be helpful no matter what your goals are. And I think it looks pretty darn cool as well. So big back, big total, big back. It just looks awesome. So again, I have some dumbbells here where, again, I can do some, to some curls, some overhead pressing, some side delts. And in terms of like kind of sometimes how I pair my exercises, I think in general, especially when it comes to upper body, a little bit to lower body is a little bit more tricky because your cardio becomes more of a limiting factor. But if it's single joint movements, you could obviously do your, quads and hamstrings, and, you could do hip flexors and glutes and things like that. Abs and calves kind of pair well. But in terms of upper body, I think you have a lot of different options. Triceps and biceps is very classic. Sometimes I'll do triceps with lats. Sometimes I'll do biceps with, sometimes I might do biceps with back movement. Sometimes I might do bicep with shoulders. Now, there is going to be some overlap in terms of like potentially chest and triceps and triceps and shoulders. There's going to be some potential overlap with biceps and shoulders. Shoulders can be a little bit tricky, and I've definitely had my fair share of kind of shoulder issues, but some general, like triceps and biceps, pretty classic. Push-pull, so you could do like kind of chest and lats, or any chest and like upper back, chest and like lat. You could do front delts and lats as well, so like kind of an overhead. So sometimes like something like a dip with a pull-up, push-up with a pull-up, push-up with inverted row, tricep extension with bicep curl. All those sorts of things are great. But also like in terms of strict curl and stuff like that, sometimes I'll do like a bicep movement. So I'll do elbow flexion with some sort of shrug movement, because that's going to be more contest specific. So I might do like upper traps or middle traps, scapular elevation, scapular retraction, those sorts of things. And then side delts, sometimes I'll sneak in as part of a trio, or I might just, sometimes, so, and again, that's something where I tend to lack in just getting my shoulder work in, just because I've been in some pain and stuff. But so I might do shoulders, I might do, side delts with rear delts, I might do side delts with biceps, etc. If I was to train for a bodybuilding show, again, I'm not saying I never will, but as of this time, it's not on the cards. I might have to, really prioritize my shoulders early in the workout. So definitely prioritize your weak muscle groups early in the workout, especially if you're more in an off-season type situation. You don't have any strength contests coming up. Wanted to showcase some push-ups here. Again, my shoulder's been bugging me, so I wasn't able to really kind of push these just due to pain, but chain's a great way to load it. And whether you have power lats or just dumbbells, I think, again, getting a little bit more of a stretch position and also supporting your wrist. Pull-ups are great. If you can't do pull-ups, just hanging on a pull-up bar is underrated. You're going to get grip strength, compression, stretch the lats a little bit, and also scapular pull-ups, so you're essentially just depressing your shoulder blades. If you have dip bars or a power rack, again, doing kind of like fat man pull-ups, or I forget what they're called. You could load these with the cool thing about this is that you can load these, so you can kind of put chains in your lap, or even put a barbell or plates or dumbbells in your lap. And again, you can do these overhand or underhand. So again, I forget the name of these, but it'll come to me probably after the video. You could also elevate your ankles on like a chair or a bench to limit the involvement of your legs. So I wanted to showcase, if you have kettlebells, kettlebell handles, Y bells, sometimes you can kind of find these different places, but this is going to change the leverage and the physics. So it's going to change the moment arm. It's going to change the distance of where the load is to your joint. So if I put my hand inside the implement, it's going to make it easier. Now, the other thing that's really cool, if you put your hand inside the implement, it allows you to do basically hands-free. You're just kind of able to kind of just almost, it's almost like creating one with your hand. If you ever use like kind of Thompson center mass bells or fat bells, similar kind of idea. So this is a really cool tool. So again, for me, if I can eliminate, grip's a weak point for me, and a lot of times my grip will kind of fail. So if you're able to do exercises, so I really like these for kind of triceps, particularly for triceps, biceps, so arm work and shoulder work in particular. So doing like side raises, you can kind of really kind of shove out to the sides versus lift up. If you're doing kind of curls, you could kind of really scoop. If you're doing triceps, you can kind of really shove, and you don't need to kind of use your grip at all, which is pretty cool. So I'm just showcasing a bunch of different movements here. This is going to be like a longer part of the section, but I think it's kind of good, again, to get implements that have multiple uses. If you're a little bit extra like me, I think having a dumbbell cart is also fine. I don't think it's really necessary, but the dumbbell cart can be good. Again, I don't think you need like $1,000, $2,000 dumbbell cart, but it can be a nice option. I think that a lot of people sometimes get a little bit crazy with the dumbbells. Again, I've benched 635 pounds in competition in the bench shirt. At my peak, I was doing around 400 raw. I'm a pretty strong guy is what I'm kind of saying. And I've done like, croc rows and things like that. But typically a lot of the dumbbell work I'm going to be doing for arms and shoulders is going to be like, usually like less than 30 pounds. And for chest and things like that, maybe it'll go up to like a 100-pound dumbbell on occasion. Like right now my shoulders are cranky, so I'm not even doing that. And I certainly could do more for like one-arm rows, but a lot of times with my lat training, it's going to be on cables and machines, or with, sometimes I've been doing a little bit more barbell rows as of late. So 99% of my training is going to be probably like 50-pound dumbbells or less. And occasionally I might touch something, around 100. So I think for most humans are not going to need more than 120-pound dumbbells, if that. And I think a lot of people can get by with just 50-pound dumbbells and a good barbell set. So this is kind of just my 2 cents. If there's any implements or kind of things that you guys want to see a more in-depth review, I want to give a good overview. And I'm also just kind of showing some tips for some different unilateral exercises and different ways you can kind of use, these implements. And then I'm going to kind of show you another thing. I really like this gear for Fit Bench. It kind of has like a fat pad on it. It can go incline, it can go decline. You could use it for sissy squats, you could use it for sit-ups. You could use it for preacher curls for one arm. You could use it for, and if you put it in a decline position, you could also do a lot of good, unique kind of shoulder work. Some is going to work more of the stretch position, some is going to work more of the contracted position. So whether you kind of are working the stretch or the squeeze, or you're trying to work the start of the strength, you're trying to work a more even strength curve, you're trying to work the bottom range, the top, the lockout. I think it's important to be strong everywhere. I think people are really kind of obsessed with just kind of what's like the one thing I need to do, but I think that you need to be strong everywhere. So make sure that your accessory movements are not redundant. Make sure you're getting strong everywhere. Obviously, if you have specific weak points, or kind of, prioritize those first, in my opinion, but also don't neglect your strengths. So you'll kind of see here, I'm just going to show you a bunch of different options for like road. These are things that I often kind of skip and I need to kind of be a little bit better with. But again, using the decline bench versus the flat bench, in my opinion, is a little bit more comfortable, a little bit easier to get in position. Right now I'm weighing around 275 pounds. I'm a big guy. It's kind of hard for me to kind of get around right now. I'm working my way down. I've been as heavy as 340 pounds. I've been as, lean as stage ready 198 back in 2020. So I'm kind of working my way back down. I'm down about 15, 20 pounds since I started my next kind of diet. But these are just some options. So again, having the ability to kind of do a full incline, I think it's a full, I think it's called FIP, full incline to decline or something like that. You guys know better than me. So let me know what you think. But this is just some unique shoulder exercises that you can do. I think some of it's been popularized by knees over toes, so not all of that stuff is bad. But again, I think you just have to understand. So you'll kind of see here, again, working more of the stretch position of the side delt, and the rear delt. And you can see I'm having a little bit trouble with my kind of bad side here, but I just wanted to kind of show for the demo. Again, with these Y bells, it's really nice because I don't really need to grab it. I can kind of just shove. So you can kind of see here, I was a little bit grimacing. So my side delt's like not really feeling great. So that might not be a great exercise for me right now. I might need to go super light. And you'll kind of see on my left side is really strong. So that's why it's also good to include some unilateral training. And that's where kind of dumbbells and cables can be really handy, because you're not going to always kind of see that if you're always in barbell stuff all the time. So, things like lunges and dumbbell work and single leg work, they definitely have their place, especially for just health. It's not necessarily going to give you an 800-pound squat, but it's going to allow you to kind of keep your body in one piece. So some things are going to work more of the software. Some things are going to work more of the hardware. And I think with these unilateral stuff, it's almost like you're thinking about it's working the frame of, if you imagine yourself as a car. And a lot of the neural work that we do with max effort work with chains and bands and overload and things like that is going to work more like the software of the system. And a lot of the hypertrophy work that we do is going to work more of the hardware, kind of building up, that good foundation. And these little kind of exercises are going to kind of make sure that the frame is nice and sturdy. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.